Hey foodies, I don't know about you, but I really like to maximize as much of my groceries as possible, meaning I want to save money and I don't want to have any food waste. So because it's just JR and I eating this meal tonight, I bought a large pot roast, about a 3-pound one, and I divided it in half, and now I'm making 2 separate meals out of it. So this is a Mississippi roast, but I'm calling it a Mississippi mud roast. And the reason for that is coming right up. And I'm doing it in my Instant Pot, which I absolutely love, and I am starting an Instant Pot series because it is my favorite appliance in the kitchen. It is awesome. So I just put some flour, salt, and pepper on the meat, and I'm just browning it with the saute function in the oil. And now I'm making the mud part. I'm using mayonnaise, the ranch dip packet, not the salad dressing. You want the dip because that helps to thicken it up a little bit. Now I know this seems contradictory from my ranch dressing that I make, but there's nothing about this recipe that's inherently healthy to me, so it's like, why not? Just go ahead and use the packaged stuff. So I'm using the au jus gravy and I'm mixing that up in the mayonnaise, and it seems bizarre. There it is. That's what it looks like, mud, and I'm literally gonna frost the meat with it. How bizarre is that? How bizarre, how bizarre. And that is a trend on TikTok right now, driving me crazy. That song's everywhere again. So I'm using the pepperoncini, which is a staple in the Mississippi roast recipes, but every brand, kind of like any other kind of pepper, some are hotter than others, so I'm using the mild. But if you, and I'm taking the stems out right now, if you like it with a little bit more of a kick, JR says that I think it's the Marizetti or Moretti or something, it begins with an M at the grocery store, very popular, is that one has a kick to it. But again, if you aren't a spice person and you're serving kids, so now I'm just gonna take the meat out and I'm gonna deglaze the pan with some beef broth. But honestly, the pepperoncini's mellow as it cooks, so it's not a spicy dish really at all. It's just got a little bit of heat. So I'm using about a cup and a half of the beef broth just to get up the fond, or otherwise known as little brown bits. Now here we go. I'm frosting the meat with my mayonnaise concoction. Now some people use butter, but I'm using the mayo and the spices. And I'm only going to do the one side, the top, and then I'll just pour the rest when I put this back into the Instant Pot. So there it is. I'm throwing some more stuff on there. Now I'm using about 12 or 13 pepperoncinis. These are tiny ones, it looks like, but some of them are really big. So again, it's all your preference. And of course you want to use some of the pepperoncini juice that's in the jar. It's entirely up to you. I really like a lot of them, but sometimes too much can be overpowering based on the spice level. So, you might have to experiment a little. So now I'm attempting to put the lid on, and now I'm going to make sure that my knob is on, not venting. There we go. And you're going to put this for manual high pressure for an hour. And it doesn't matter what size roast you have. You could have an 8-pound roast and you're still going to do it for an hour. So little or big, an hour long is all you'll need. So my Instant Pot is kind of the older version, but it's tried and true, and it has the yogurt button, which I love. So no complaints. And here's the other half of the roast, which I'm boiling on the stove. I did not brown it in oil, just straight up boiling it for a Mexican pot roast. Now, I don't know what those onions are called. I always see them in the Mexican grocery stores. I just call them Mexican green onions, but I'm sure there's bulb onions. I'm sure there's another name for them. And some garlic. And so I'm just going to let that simmer for an hour along with the Instant Pot. Meanwhile, I'm prepping all of my produce. We're using up a lot of beef this weekend because I'm trying to clean out the freezer of our red meats, because we really do want to go into the new year eating better, and I do have some weight loss goals. So for me, if I don't pre-prep these veggies, half of them are going to get tossed, and it's so much easier for me to make smoothies and salads and soups and be more into it if it's just easy and convenient for me to grab it out of the fridge. So it takes a little bit of investment in time up front. I usually do it on a Sunday, and so I've got this hour while my meats are cooking, so why not do it? And I label everything. I do try to use the recyclable bags as much as possible. And I suggest everybody get one of these. It is a lettuce cleaner, but you can use it for any greens, any veggies, berries. It's got a removable colander, and you can use the bowl as a big salad bowl, but it cleans and dries your greens. And all you do is pump the top. Now, I had one that had a crank on the top, but it was collapsible. So this one is much easier to use, but it's bulky. It doesn't collapse, so it takes up a lot of space. It's a trade-off, but it's an amazing thing to have, especially if you want to start eating more greens or if you do juicing. I also keep a colander in the sink just to be able to just toss everything into the sink, and then at the end of the evening I can just put it in the garbage. So just a couple tricks and tips, because that's a recyclable one I'm trying to clean. I like to clean as I go. I don't like to have a huge ginormous mess after I'm done eating. So I like to make sure that everything's done. So now I'm going to make my sauce for my Mexican pot roast, which is 3 Roma tomatoes, an onion, and some garlic. I'm using 2 chili anchos and 1 Chili Pasilla, and they look a lot alike, so it's important to make sure that you label your peppers if you start cooking with them a lot, because those right there are pretty easy to mix up. And so what I'm going to do with these is I'm just going to take off the stems, I'm going to remove the seeds, and then just rinse them clean before I add them to the pot with the tomatoes and the onion and the garlic and stuff like that. And sometimes they're soft like this and they're more malleable. When they get a little bit older, they tend to crack, so they're a little bit more challenging to clean. But we want to put them in the water till they get soft, just like with the tomatoes. And that takes about 20 minutes to a half hour. So whatever seeds didn't come out will, when I rinse them, and then now I'm adding it to the pan. Just gonna let that come to a boil. And I'll know it's done when the tomato skins have started to kind of wrinkle. And I took the meat out already. This is for the Mexican pot roast, to shred it. And now I've shredded my meat. I didn't do that great of a job because I'm pretty tired. And now my Mississippi mud roast is done. You want to do it at 60 and then let it natural release for 20 minutes. And there it is. You can't, well, the lighting's not so great, but if there was a bone in there, it would fall off the bone. It is so tender, it just falls apart as soon as you put a fork to it. Now you can make a thicker gravy out of this. You can take the meat out and put the saute button on, like right there, and do like a cornstarch slurry or add some flour and thicken it up. To me, it thickens up a little bit while it's standing, but I like it all over my mashed potatoes the way it is. So now I'm ready to do my sauce for my Mexican pot roast. So now I'm just going to transfer everything out of the pan. And that was hot, so that's why there's a lot of distance there and I'm making a mess, but whatever. I just want to get all that stuff in the blender, and I'm going to use about, I think, half a cup of the reserve juice there to make sure that I have enough liquid. And there we go. Just add that, and you're just gonna add some salt. You're just gonna want to blend it until it's smooth. There's no real time or no set setting. Just kind of eyeball it. Meanwhile, I do have a pan on the stove with some vegetable oil heating up. Now I'm going to pour the sauce into the pan with the oil, and I'm going to saute the sauce for a bit. And I'm going to add some Mexican oregano and some whole cumin seeds. There we go. And stir that up, obviously. And at this point, you are going to want to taste for salt. And I definitely want some more. I added some chicken bouillon as well as a little bit of salt for some flavor. And now I'm adding, and that's a different spoon than the one I tasted with. I have like 10 wooden spoons. And my veggies. My vegetables here is a red potato, some carrots, and Mexican squash, Mexican zucchini, I guess you could call it, calabacitas. And just going to incorporate that in there. And this is going to stew for a little bit too until the veggies are soft. I feel that this is one of those meals that's best the next day. So that's why we're eating it tomorrow. And I'm going to be probably just making some rice with it. Maybe some elote on the side too. I'm adding some onion powder and some garlic powder because I actually did not add onion and garlic, although there is some in my sauce. But this is just giving it a little bit of an extra flavor kick, a little extra seasoning, because I love me some seasoning. And then here we go. That's how it's looking. That's going to be so good tomorrow. I can't wait. And yeah, the cheaper cuts of meat, when you put them in the Instant Pot, become so tender. And there's the Mississippi roast, which I've already dug into. JR is waiting for me to come join him. But yeah, enjoy. 2 for the price of 1 with 1 cheap meat.